Welcome back to Black Gems Unearthed. I'm Jazz, and I am digging up Black history stories all around Massachusetts to share with you. And today, my sweet tooth has brought me back up to the North Shore to Marblehead. Isn't it beautiful out here? Look at that foliage, that ocean, yes. But my sweet tooth has brought me up here to give you a little taste of Black history. That's right, this is a food-centric video all about the Joe Frogger cookie. So I'm out here, we're gonna find some cookies and I'm gonna tell you the story about them. So picture this. It's the late 1700s to mid 1800s, and there's this dynamic Black couple, Lucretia and Joseph Brown, who own and operate their own tavern right here in Marblehead. It was very popular. Many people came here for their drinks, for their food, to socialize and have a good time. And I mean everybody. Black people, white people, locals, people visiting, sailors, that sort of thing. It just was a really fun atmosphere to visit. It was during the election time period around May where there was the majority of people coming to visit because a lot of people had time off from work, kids were out of school, they could kind of hang out. The husband, Joseph, legend has it that he used to take out his fiddle and play music for people that were hanging in the tavern. But the legend also says that he only knew one song, Yankee Doodle. So he tried to mix it up a little bit, playing it at different tempos so that people would not get bored and would continue to dance. It was a very social atmosphere. While people just remember them for being really good hosts in this tavern, it's the cookies that are the most remembered. So Lucretia came up with this recipe for these delicious ginger molasses cookies that were very flat, and she called them Joe Frogger cookies. She named them after her husband Joe, and she named them Frogger because this pond behind me was filled with frogs that hopped on the lily pads, and the cookies kind of looked like those lily pads. One of the things that made these cookies so special was that they never went stale. They lasted like forever. So the people that were sailors going off on long voyages, this was the perfect food to pack with them that tasted good and wouldn't go bad. So that said, I'm gonna go try and find these cookies. Let's go. Oh, look at all these ducks hanging out with me. Oh, they're so pretty. Ooh. All right, I somehow found parking down here in Marblehead. I lucked out so that I can go inside this place that sells Joe Frogger cookies. It's called the Muffin Shop. You wouldn't think they have cookies by the name, but they do, and not just Joe Froggers. So definitely gonna get at least one Frogger and then see what else they have to offer. So these are the Joe Frogger cookies. As you can see, they are very flat and very large.
We put a lot of heart and soul in it.
Yeah.
Juice and batters almost every single night. You know? And it's just been here so long, we became like a family in this place. We have returning customers for years and years, seeing them growing up, little kids coming in here, and then half of them coming here to work.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's amazing.
You ready to see this cookie up close and personal? Oh my God, they're huge. Seriously, look at this cookie. Oh my God, it smells so good. It just smells like molasses heaven. Oh my God, this is so big. Breakfast cookie. You can taste the ginger. Oh my goodness. And the molasses. I'm feeling the holiday spirit. I know there's ghosts and stuff behind me from Halloween, but this cookie feels like Christmas is coming. These cookies are so good that I feel like I may need to learn how to make them myself, because coming up to Marblehead all the time for a cookie is not realistic. So if you would like to learn how to make a Joe Frogger cookie, stick around. Let's make Joe Frogger cookies. So excited. We're going to use the recipe from Taste of Home. So you can see the ingredient list here, take a screenshot if you'd like, or just check in the YouTube description for the recipe if you want to follow along. So you'll notice in the ingredient list that there is no dairy and there's no egg in this recipe. And that's probably why back in the 1800s, these cookies did not spoil. They stayed fresh. Plus the molasses and all the sugar really helped kind of preserve the cookies and keep them tasting delicious for those sailors that went on long journeys. So let's dive into these steps. And as we go along, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Lucretia Brown and Joseph Brown, for whom the cookies are named after. Not only did Lucretia make these Joe Frogger cookies, she also brewed her own beer and baked cakes. According to the Marblehead Museum, she baked wedding cakes, election buns, and lassie cakes. So of course she was loved around the town, making all these delicious treats, especially for people's weddings. How nice! If you're like me, you're probably wondering, what's an election bun and a lassie cake? Can't say I've seen that in bakeries around the city. So I looked it up. Evidently, election buns were like a bundt cake. So picture like a fruit cake that could weigh 12 pounds that was served to people after they voted. That sounds pretty good to me. I like a slice of cake after voting. Forget the stickers. Those always get stuck on my clothes, and then I wash my clothes, and then it's frustrating because the sticker disintegrates in my laundry machine. Let's swap to cakes. Although I prefer one maybe that's less dense than this one sounds. I couldn't figure out the backstory on lassie cakes. Way too many things came up on the internet, many different types of cakes. So if anyone is out there that knows about lassie cakes from New England in the 1800s, please give me the deets. So anywho, in addition to making cakes, Lucretia also made rose water. Evidently it was a popular cooking additive back in the 1800s. I feel like it's come full circle since I do see rose and lavender making guest appearances on the menus of bakeries around me. I'm looking at you, Sofra and Tate. Aside from using it for cooking, Lucretia also sold rose water as perfume, covering up the many odors of the 1800s. Making rose water was not an easy task. People remembered seeing Lucretia out and about around Marblehead, collecting rose petals from fields early in the morning, and even going into graveyards, collecting petals that still had morning dew. She'd preserve them, and then at the end of the season, she'd boil the petals and collect the liquid that came from the vaporization process. Okay, science. She's kind of a scientist right there. Wow, being able to make this rose water. And she made really good money from it too, selling it for like 50 cents a bottle, which was around half a day's labor for a farmhand. Impressive. With all that baking and the rose water business, it's no wonder that folks remembered Lucretia as an industrious lady. She was born free in Salem in 1773 and died in 1857 of old age. She was about 84. Let us not forget about her husband, Joe. Joseph was a Revolutionary War patriot. He fought in the war to gain his freedom because he was born into slavery in 1749 in North Kingston, Rhode Island. His father was an Aquina Wampanoag man from Martha's Vineyard, and his mother was an African woman, though I don't know much more about her than that. He was enslaved to Lucretia Brown, who was a sheriff in the Washington County of Rhode Island. So Joe was well respected around Marblehead. And though there are no photos of him, or Lucretia for that matter, because photos weren't a thing at that time, we can kind of picture what Joe looked like through news clippings here and there that the Marblehead Museum has dusted off. The museum recounted one memory from a guy who saw Joseph sitting in an armchair and commented on him being a burly man, maybe 6 foot tall and quite old. Other people noted that Joe kept the time for his fiddle that they loved listening to and dancing to by beating his big feet. So with these little clues, we can kind of picture that Joseph must have been a large dude for the times.
For good measures, I think I probably should taste test this before I actually begin making these cookies. That tastes good. Tastes like a Frogger to me. So Joseph passed away in 1834, leaving Lucretia to live on without him for another 20 plus years. Whoa.
As I roll out these cookies, I can't help but think about how the slave trade was tied up in these ingredients, from the molasses to the rum to the sugar. All of these ingredients were involved with the selling of African people and their forced labor. Whew. Sugar grown in the Caribbean was used to make the molasses and the rum that's in these cookies. And you can't forget the actual sugar too. The molasses came from extracted juice from the sugar cane that was boiled, and then the rum came from distilling molasses. So, these are delicious cookies, but kind of a dark past if you think about it.
While we can't change the complicated past of these ingredients, we can at least acknowledge the history. But back to Lucretia and Joe. Their legacy is preserved through this cookie recipe, and a couple of other ways around Marblehead. There's a headstone for Joe in the old Burial Hill Cemetery, and a headstone for the couple in the Waterside Cemetery. There's a new elementary school that was named after Lucretia and Joseph Brown in 2021. And there's the conservation area that I was at earlier that's named after Joe, which recently had a name change, thankfully, because it was called Old Black Joe, and that was problematic since that's the name of a famous song that was used in blackface minstrel shows that romanticized slavery. Ugh.
Batch number 1 has come out. Let me show you how they look. Da 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 da! Joe Frogger cookies. These look pretty good to me. I put sugar on them after they came out rather than while they were baking, which is not what the instructions said, but sometimes you do your own thing. But the next ones I'm gonna put in the oven and have the sugar already on them so we can compare. We have batch number 2, which I cooked at a lower temperature for a short amount of time, which maybe this is more to your liking. Looks good. They definitely are softer. So these are the 2 different versions of the cookies. This is the one that I made at 375 for a little bit under 14 minutes, whereas this little piece is from one of the cookies I made in the second batch that I cooked for 350 at around 12-ish minutes. And you can also see there's a little bit of a difference in the thickness. So it just is a kind of a matter of preference, matter of taste preferences. I like them both. This one you can hear doesn't have half as much crunch as this one does. Serious crunch, not so much. All delicious. Cookies. I'm in my happy cookie place. Massachusetts has some serious cookie credentials. From the chocolate chip cookie that was created in Massachusetts, to the Fig Newton, to these Joe Frogger cookies. So there you have it. That's another black gem unearthed. I hope you have a chance to try these Lucretia Brown Joe Frogger cookies, either by going to visit the Muffin shop in Marblehead, that's delightful, or just make your own Joe Frogger cookies at home, especially during the holiday season. These are a delicious option. Feel free to take a look at the description of if you're on YouTube, because that's where I have all my sources along with this recipe too. Until next time.